as Amar said, we're happy to be part of this event. We see this as something different. When I went through some of the initial conversations that we had, it's not really a conference. Then I was talking to an ex-colleague, and he talked about some of the workshops that have been done by Amar and his team earlier. So I think this is really about knowledge exchange, and how we share, and of course we gain knowledge in a more effective manner. So with that said, this is our first participation from Tata Communications perspective at a Wisdom of Crowd event. So look forward to some good interactions, and hopefully a few more people will float in as we go through the day. My name is Avinash Prasad. I'm based out of Bangalore in India, but look after our business in cyber globally. And we'll be presenting to you in the next half an hour or so certain thoughts and approaches. So I've tried to stay away from the sales pitch, but then we say that, but many times we don't do that because we all have targets to meet, right? So we'll see, given as I said, this event is so much about interaction, we'll see at the end of it what you have to say about that in terms of how much of selling versus how much of discussions and knowledge. So what is the topic? Now, just a little bit of history, right? So as a company, many of you may know about us, at least would have heard of us. So as a service provider, obviously we have been catering to not just India but global markets for quite some time now. As we did that, and as the internet came into focus as the backbone of business, and it really started building up, and also for India, and we all know about the internet penetration now, number of users, devices, etc., and we are going to be absolutely the number one in the world. There's no doubt about that. Security obviously is an important question that we also had to answer. So that's something that we started answering in terms of services for our customers, given that we are a service provider for security. Now, as we have matured and we have really built a focus group, so this is the question which came to our mind, right? As we are moving forward in this journey, and there are all these questions. Email is open, there's security issue. Your laptop is open, your email is unprotected, etc. At the same time, one of the key goals, and this is what I present to you today as a hypothesis, is the fact that we would want to improve our posture for security, for threat management through, using the capabilities of automation as well. And that's what we want to examine a bit more. So that's what we will go through today. And as I said, that's something that is, if the essence of what we deliver to you is services, is fairly important both for us as well as for our customers. So that said, just to set the context right, again, I will not obviously preach to the choir. So you're all here because you care about security, and it could only be possibly the gray in your hair, which you may not remember some of the earlier stuff, but you'll remember the rest of it. So having said that, so yes, obviously things have been going in this manner. Still, some of the earlier generation issues are also applicable. Yes, for sure they're applicable. Infections are still, something which could be an issue. Compliance is an issue which we see in G3. So these are the generations of SOC. This is kind of in our mind, as we played it out, again, based on models that we see in the industry, how the Security Operations Center has kind of evolved, meeting the fact that digital transformation is driving most businesses today. So if DX is driving our businesses today, right, and how is this kind of scaling up is what we're talking about. So the point that we will start with is that anybody could be at any stage, right? So let me use a pointer here. Let's see if it works. Okay, I was standing somewhere else when I was doing it. 1 second. Yeah, okay, it's come back now. So I think I have to stay closer to this. So so as we see, right, it's all about, anybody could be at any stage as an organization. So it's about bridging the journey if one has to get to capabilities around the next gen SOC. So that's one point. Some of the key aspects and focus areas of projects that we see today are really around these. I'm trying to work this out. Yeah. Is around these three broadly. And we'll, during the day when we have breakouts, these will be points of discussion also, right? That the ability to have a posture which better meets, APT, attacks and detection, etc., going up to the SOC, which is effectively integrating and consuming cyber threat intel and is able to present enriched analytics, and then going on to the journey, which is where automation comes in the next gen SOC, and something which is more self-learning, driven by AI or ML. So with that being kind of the overall listing, and the practical reality being that one could be anywhere in the journey and bridging it, is the other aspect that at least in our ecosystem, we are aware of this, but we should be well aware of it, because based on the type of business that you are in, it will be, so the examples that we see here, let me point out a few. Okay. So is the fact that, the insurance one, which is fairly new, okay? We have state level cybersecurity policies, setups, infrastructure now coming up in terms of, this thing. Smart cities, we have heard of those projects, and there was a slew of requirements that came out. Of course, the government had declared a charter, so they wanted to get many of the smart city projects going. The fact is, the Ministry of Urban Development has called out also a security framework for that. But we also know that as cybersecurity practitioners, it will take a lot of doing to get that done. A city which is connected, which has got so many sensors, where so much of information is constantly flowing, and the command and control is looking at various things, whether it be traffic, lighting, citizen safety, etc. How to bring security into that, we can imagine, right? When we struggle with just our enterprises, with number of employees and laptops and all that, when you look at a city and when you start thinking of Mumbai, think of, what that could mean, right? So there are those frameworks there, but, implementation is clearly one issue. So the ones which have gotten most enforced are we know that is from the BFS, you are based in Mumbai, so is in the banking and finance segment, especially the RBI framework, because that was enforced hard. And there was a lot of push behind that. So that's something that we have seen there. And then now it is extended on to urban cooperative banks, seeing there was clearly a element of threat there. And at the bottom is this thing. So I was fortunate to meet briefly with Justice Sri Krishna the other day. So now, this is the time when I think this will, what you see at the bottom over there is, this will come up again for consideration. There was a slowdown from November, December last year to now because of the phases of us going through our elections in the country, but now it will be this thing. Is there a position I should be standing at, Amar, to just ensure that this keeps, the marker comes up? I think it's probably this. Okay, this seems okay. No worries. Let me see if maybe I'm here or something. Yeah. So, which is that's what I was pointing to here. A draft bill on data protection, which is also out for public consumption and commentary. So, looking at, therefore, what are some of the challenges, right, on this, as we look at, next gen, all the goals, what's happening out there, right? An obvious one is the fact that there's a challenge of talent, okay? And one might think that, is automation the answer to that or not? That's also a topic of debate. We can consider that. How to integrate the security program given different stakeholders, given the fact that security has certain implications of seen as slowing down, as blocking certain things, as being a checker process which comes in the way. The processes, in terms of how to look at what is priority, what is the real big true positive hitting you, that's clearly an issue. And of course the fact that, in the world of fake news, we also have our own challenges to deal with, right? So therefore, this false positives, of course, it has different implications for security, but the fact is there's a lot of that stuff coming along, which one has to sift through and filter. So then that ties into how, an MSSP looks at it. I'll not get into too much of detail on that. But the idea being that, look at it from an operational and a sustainable model that can help address some of those challenges, whether it be, setting workflows, for example, right? You could look at it in your organization that, I want to have this kind of a workflow to solve something which needs to be set up, updated on the perimeter. I need to start changing certain things, blocking certain things, right? But that workflow doesn't seem to work because you have, issues, things get slowed down because the other side doesn't want to make those changes and the implications are unclear, etc. So these workflows is something that we work on a lot. We try to model it within an organization and also try to bring in this kind of workflows which are there. Again, it has to be adapted to an organization, but it gives the quick start that customers are looking for. So that's one example. I'll not get into a whole lot of other stuff. So the key goals, right? It's in security also. When we talk about prioritization, therefore the KPIs have to be clear. What are we really after, right? So the two things that while we have got the kill chain and we've got all the good stuff, yeah. But I think the key KPI, the important KPIs would be, of course, finding detection and response, right? As we go through this, we look at this whole life cycle there. And the approach is to try to shift left in this whole process of the kill chain, right? So how do we do that? While trying to protect an environment that has got IT, classical IT, and then cloud, and then extending on to other environments as well. So those are the key goals that I wanted to talk about in this thing, and I will present to you a few approaches for that now. So while we look at detection, we look at response, and then response, of course, leads to remediation and follow through. And we look at these buckets. So let's examine the people issue first, right? So the fact is that if it's manual operations, then there's dependence, and at the right time or the wrong time, the right resources are not available, etc. And that is a challenge. And churn is a big issue. Churn is a big issue we are all facing, whether it's your internal team, whether it's my teams as a service provider, because of the fact that there's a constant pull in the market. So if I were to look at that, and I'll get here, then some of the things that I talked about to begin with in the theme is what are some of the things that analysts today complain about? Let's say sometimes they'll complain about the drudgery of work. Or this is I have to go here, there, and all. It's not easy for me to get the information to do my job as a SOC analyst. That could be one. Or it's just operationally painful to do it. Or there's pressure on me to get speed, but I don't have access to the sources of information. So the first point that we are trying to make over here is, which is the collection, the investigation, that part of the life cycle that you see on the left. How do we make things simpler for the SOC analyst so that that is in a way value back to them, and of course the fact that they are able to do more and faster with the time. So that's one point that we are trying to make there, which is about having the workflows, giving the right enrichment to the data already, so the decision making by the analyst is not about 10 steps being taken by them just to fetch enough data and context and then start doing something, but having a lot of that come in the right as part of the process itself. So how to automate some of that information, okay? So that is available and the right workflows are there where they're able to drive queries with other IT teams and other user teams as needed. So that's one side of it that we are talking about, so that even if it's the skill gap, then that's where the still some standardized process and playbooks can help in terms of being able to do that. That helps engage the SOC analyst team more also, empower them. The second part is, of course, the orchestration bit also. Again, where you have to deal with otherwise multiple types of devices, and we know that there could be an issue of administrative skill on those devices. There could be the change management process to be dealt with. There could be the obviously the downtime that has to be figured out in terms of what is to be done, and being able to standardize that at least 70 to 80% of these activities, can we do it in our playbook? What are those 70 to 80% activities? What is the decision making around that? So I think those are some of the key things today, that if we just move away from the problem that yes, there's a demand in the market for security professionals, so people will move around, but how do we make the security professionals that we have more effective? How do we scale up the professionals that we onboard into our teams, the engineers that we get into our teams, is a question that I'm trying to answer over here by using this same example with the So that's in terms of the fact that it was manual operations, a lot of human dependence, and the challenge of looking at people and people moving. Second one that we can look at is the efficiency part. Yep. So from an efficiency perspective, I think definitely what we have seen is in terms of the technology and the platform expansion, that is there. There are different tools available for rendering analytics in a certain context on a certain vector of your organization's traffic, user behavior, other kinds of patterns that can start coming in to start taking us on the journey of that initially what I showed you on the next gen SOC part of it, right? Where monitoring, we started off with monitoring, right? Where the SIM obviously was not even integrated effectively, right? Maybe not integrated with the right layers and the right devices, the right log events not coming into it, or not the right use cases and rules being mapped to it. Could be any of those problems that were there, right? So from there, now to move to this world is where I'm saying the journey is very much there. That journey is not an overnight journey. And therefore, in terms of being able to effectively utilize this, the appetite of the organization to choose which layer, or if you want to do multiple layers also, whether it be around the user layer, you want to look at users and devices first and go in with more of a behavior analytics, UEBA approach. You want to go with more of a network approach if the vector that you want to examine is more inward, outward one. That's what you want to focus on more, and that comes from an understanding of the organization. So I've not gone into things like threat modeling and all of that right here, but it gets derived from there. And that's where then we start looking at what are these aspects that should be the focus of this. And then decoy and deception is now coming in more and more into enterprise environments, again, to look at potential intrusions and lateral movement. And of course, CTI, in terms of how actionable it is, again, it could be an interesting question that Amar could pose to the audience that, we all have today some shape and form cyber threat intel. How actionable it is, what do you feel as enterprises is something, is again an interesting question. So the point being that, so context aware and efficiency is what we are looking at. Okay, there's a lot of noise in the system today. It will continue to grow. So how to use these solutions and technologies? Again, I'm just leaving it as this. I don't have a cookbook that I want to present today. I'm just talking about the core ideas and the solution avenues available. So with that, sorry about this. Yeah. So that's the point I wanted to elaborate on efficiency. And then the third one and the key one that I want to talk about is how to pull it all together by way of information, by way of flows of workflows of processes, etc. How to do that, which is the central box here of the fact that you will have different tools. Your IT environment will still have some legacy. It will not go away. And then the inconsistency of process and priority. So that's what is there. So if we look at that situation, yeah. So in that case, what we have seen is, that one is a unified dashboard that we are looking at. And, that's something which is clearly an ask and a requirement, right? So the minute you get into a managed services engagement, that's something that you should expect, you should get. But we also know that the standard template doesn't really meet your organization needs. There is always, that level of additional customization enhancement that has to be done. That could be around any of these areas. It could be around, so the persona here, the customer is typically, let's say, your persona. At the same time, of course, we have the engineers who could be working from our side as an MSSP, or it could be working from a technology, a product company, a FireEye or a Cisco or somebody, and then the SOC analysts who are working on it. Provisioning of a solution, monitoring of that, or incident handling, and interfacing and working through the CERT team, etc., which is there. Finally, going into a portal view which gives access, and then driving it down through orchestration onto the environments where security has been deployed, whether it be on the network, whether it be even for cloud part of it. And in cloud, we know orchestration is the name of the game. Otherwise you are not utilizing the benefit of the elasticity and speed of the cloud at all. So security has to scale to that and has to be able to map to that. So this, in terms of just driving that efficiency, in terms of who are the workers, how the information and action is being taken by them, and how it flows down into the target environments is the point that I wanted to make over here. And this is all brought in through what we have created, of course, as our services portal that we call Catalyst, and through which we provide these the visibility to you, as well as we run the actions and the execution through that. There's a lot of work we have to do on the API integration side to make the orchestration happen. So we have an ongoing team effort that is there, and we have to have the right vendor relationships to make it happen as well. So with that being seen, I just wanted to then paint it back into, what kind of customer base are we serving, how are we doing it. So clearly the trend is also, we have to, while we think global, we have to act local, which means that, we have to execute in the regions and the theaters that we serve. And we have capabilities today to be able to do that, meaning that what you see here is the live, what we call Cybersecurity Response Center, or SOC, which are there in, of course, in India with the 2 major locations, but serving APAC, ASEAN through a Singapore Cybersecurity Response Center, CSRC, and Dubai, and then serving Europe through one outside London, west of London, which we'll have here, which is an upcoming SOC that we're looking at. So that is another very clear aspect of SOC orchestration, running a SOC today in terms of how you serve that specific region. And this is another thing that we thought of. So it looks jazzy, but the fact is you have to make security alive. So what we did was, when we created this experience center, and this experience center is adjunct to our actually a cybersecurity response center in Chennai. So it's co-located with that, is to where we look at, what kind of live flows and therefore live attack detection we can show you on our network. As some of you may know, right, we have pretty much the largest global network as far as an ISP is concerned, right? And a huge number of internet routes going through us. 1/4 of the internet routes go through us, right? So these are some things where we are able to, we use this facility to bring out those capabilities, and of course talk more about our solutions, etc. also. So that's where, what we have seen is being able to, we had professionals like you walk in and they said that I want to get my CXO here. The reason being that, there is a level of appreciation of security in the context of, how you can see live attacks and what it could mean to your organization. It really lands well in this kind of a setting. So, this is an experience center that we have created, and that's the notion behind that, and would love to welcome you all whenever you can find a time to visit us in Chennai. With that, I just wanted to touch upon one actual execution that we have done. Sorry, I'm not seeing a timer, Amar, so.
No, it's okay.
You're okay, yeah? Normally, sometimes there's a screen down there which tells you, oh, there you are. We don't have that, but that's fine.
That's totally fine. Carry on.
Yeah. So now talking about the practical thing, right, in terms of how it's working, so for a given bank, right? So again, mapping it back to the original environment in terms of what existed or what they wanted to achieve is the top line here that you see. With a little bit of cloud, but primarily own data center environment, the kind of initial events that they were looking at in terms of monitoring, number of people in this thing, many branches. We're talking about many branches, hundreds of branches, and an on-prem and remote deployment model. So looking at the same layers which are there today which are needed for a SOC. So again, a complex solution really, so making the big leap. So this was an area where it was about making the big leap, a lot of solutions, but again to be deployed in a certain sequence. Okay, in terms of defining which layers initially you want to go for. Is the perimeter layer, are we looking at more of the data center and the application side, user side, what are we looking at? So, but all these solutions are coming into play to look at finally achieving the next gen SOC journey part of it, divided as per these layers. So you can see that there is UEBA, there's network analytics, network behavior analytics, endpoint detection and response, and then integrating it back into SOAR as well. What is the kind of coverage? So, without getting into details, given the customer's environment, what is the coverage we were targeting or we were able to achieve in year one? Is 85% of the endpoints, okay? In terms of key hosts and servers, close to 100%, 92%, and in terms of network, in terms of ingress, egress, and internal segments, 100% coverage. So that's one journey. It could again be different for your organization in terms of what you want to achieve, what you want to do for your VIP users, what you want to do for your remote users. We talked about email and phishing as some key threats today, right? So one could slice it in different ways. So it depends on how your environment is connected. So this one was focused on that. And in terms of looking at what kind of threat use cases did we model on that to obviously give them the right visibility and the speed to detection and response that I talked about. That is through some generic out-of-the-box available standard use cases also. So, picking and choosing from that and 85% of that, then mapping it to, some of the leading models and frameworks like the Midway attack, the framework that we have, and that has got 100 plus this use cases. But what gets mapped to this here is where we are looking at it. But that's a standard that we are also applying to look at this. And at the same time, there's custom also based on the types of audits being carried out in their environment, and the kind of specific findings that are there. Look at custom use cases as well. So that's again in simplified view, the kind of journey of there's a tool view mapped to different layers part of it, what kind of environment, and then how do you really look at extending it is what I wanted to present in terms of thing. And therefore, but how do you map it back to what the organization wants out of it, right? So what the organization wants out of it is obviously measurable and qualitative benefits. So that's what I wanted to be able to talk about. So clearly going from a fairly manual operational model to something where time to detect and time to respond could be measured. Okay, so bringing measurability, bringing in efficiency from there, that perspective, bringing in a core of the core SOC and then expanding it from there. So the skilled resources part of it is there. Processes and priority, having the governance around that and starting to talk to the customer about how these will get implemented. Not easy to do. It took several meetings before we were able to start aligning and standardizing that, because many times it will be that you go and approach someone, they'll direct you to the next and the next and the next and the you go and explain to everybody and you try and sort out that problem. Now that's easier said than done. In an organizational context, we can go from desk to desk as an MSSP, but it won't solve the problem. So that was there. And then of course the fact that the false noise, the fact that the banking related attacks are reported very regularly. So what does it mean for the bank? How do we keep them within that context is a key aspect of it. How to look at the different interfacing of tools with source so that one doesn't have to go into multiple endpoints and try to, or multiple systems, subsystems to try and handle that, has helped, and of course bringing in more alerts and intelligence in their context. So that's what I had today in terms of just talking about a journey, talking about how the approaches are there, linking it back to people, linking it back to, of course, execution and processes also. And that's frankly what we do as an MSSP. So thank you for your time and attention today.
Okay, stay there.
Questions or?
Yep, show of hands please, first of all. Okay, question. Is the virtual reality thing that you showed, is that actually available now?
Yes.
Clients?
Yes. So what I showed was an experience center that has been live.
The experience center, this one?
For the last 9 months. So absolutely, yes.
And where is it? Only in Chennai or?
Yes, this experience center is in Chennai. Do we have the virtual reality?
Does it actually look like this?
It is this.
Okay.
So it is this. But we do have a VR on a VR headset available here.
That's outside at the...
Here.
Has anyone been to this center? Anyone sitting here? Okay, that's one of your things to do, I guess. Visit Chennai. Sounds very interesting.
Yes.
Is it touch screen like you see over there? Interactive wall. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a technology bit, and then there's the whole interaction with with live information. So yes, absolutely would.
Okay, for those of you coming in, just stay there for a while. We're going to a few more questions. Those of you coming in, please make sure you go to this website because we need interactive feedback. So this is the website. Many people who have come in during your talk, sli.do. Open your not so smartphones, sli.do. If you are using Huawei, they know all the answers anyway. And once you go to this website, please type in WOC India. Wisdom of Crowds India, all one word. And then click join. And we go to the next question, which is this one here. And the question is cybersecurity incident management. This is feedback from what you have in your organization. Are you doing it? Everything is in-house. Hybrid means you are using a mix of people at your own business and you're outsourcing some of it. And I guess completely outsourced means you don't want any headache. You just want to, go to your boss and say you're doing the best thing possible, which is always interesting. So, yes, keep that coming. We got the next one coming in. Let's keep all those answers. SLI.do, Slido, and the joining code is WOC India. We need everyone to get in there, please. If you can't access, let us know. SLI.do, and the code to join is WOC India. So let's see what, these are live statistics. We can see 67% are doing some kind of hybrid. We had at least 25 people or 30 people, so let those numbers go up. Completely in-house, 36%. That's very interesting. Okay. Completely outsourced, one guy, two people. Don't let the audience influence your answers, please. This is why in UK on the day of polling you cannot have anything on the TV, because the ability of what you are seeing to influence your answers is quite high. Make this real, please. It helps the others also get a true picture of what is happening. Okay, next one. 3, 2, 1. Cyber security incident management team. Obviously in-house, you can't match Tata Communications and the others. They have more than many. But in-house, if you are doing a hybrid or in-house management, incident response, incident management, including the poor folks who have to manage the SIEM. Has anyone heard of the concept of log beggar? No? Has anyone ever done any SIEM implementation? How many people have done SIEM? Have you ever gone begging for logs? So we are all log beggars. Or as they say in Hindi, log de de baba. And then when everything goes silent, you have to go and say, please can you switch the tap back on? So let's see what the numbers are. You know what, this is fascinating because in UK and every other kind of non-Indian countries, they think India is full of people in terms of skilled people. But that figure is very interesting. Average of 0 to 5, as in none. Should be 1 to 5, shouldn't be 0 to 5. Wow. Skill shortage is a global problem.
I think it's the nuance of also the in-house also is there, so that's probably playing into it. Because this says, probably what they might be thinking is, how many do I have who are my own employees? They might have other arrangements, which was the previous question.
Yes, the previous question is outsourced hybrid model. These are your own people, right? Either they are, in the UK, the concept of contracting is very popular.
Yeah.
But if they are your own FTE, your full-time employees, that figure is very astonishing. I would have thought it would be more than 10 for many. How many people have selected more than 10? 25. Healthy number. Keep the numbers up, please. SLI.do. Walk India. Next one. We're going to come back to these questions very soon. How do you perform threat hunting? How often?
How often do you do it? Yeah.
How often? What is threat hunting? Come on, don't do that. If it's genuine, it's fine. But okay, some questions are serious questions, people. Okay, we're going to have a fun question later on. We have several fun questions in the early part of the day. Okay, that's interesting. Like I said, don't let everybody else influence your answers. Once a day? That I guess is regularly. Once a week, once a month, once a quarter. Okay.
I guess the first block means that there is some kind of a dedicated team for that.
Yes, the assumption I guess is going to be that if you're doing it once a day, either you're really free, no, just kidding, or you have someone working for you who is doing some kind of active, proactive threat hunting. Or maybe automated proactive threat hunting, right? Very interesting. Once a day, 25%. And for those 15%, I'm more than happy to tell you what threat hunting is. Okay, next one. And remember, we're going to come back and these are going to be massive discussion points. What is your primary source for threat hunting? This is open text. Yeah? So some ideas are there about endpoints, networks, open text. What is your primary source of threat hunting? These are all educative answers. The whole concept of wisdom of crowds is to see what people are saying.
Let me get my phone also.
Yeah, get your phone, yes. Oh, you have, yeah.
I can add my response also.
SLI.do. Just to make sure everyone's there again, we need maximum participation. SLI.do, and then the code is WOC India. WOC India, Wisdom of Crowds India. Let's see what the answers are. Threat intel, endpoints, servers, checkout, websites. Interesting, no one has said LinkedIn. Threat intel, endpoint, network analytics, combination of all. Those kind of answers should be banned. The other answer I really don't like, it depends. That's not giving a straightforward answer, is it? Some interesting thing. Combination of tools, logs. Really, that's interesting. That's a very interesting answer for vulnerability assessment. Firewall analyzer. What's the next one? Industry intel monitoring, endpoint behavior, threat intel, phishing. Can I have a show of hands? How many people here pay for commercial threat intel feeds? Anyone paying for commercial? You can put your legs up if you don't want to put your hands. Only 2 or 3 or 4. Wow, that's interesting. Do you provide, if someone takes your service, do you provide complimentary threat intel? Or do people have to pay more?
Yeah, so let me bring in another point of view. It could be something which is maybe packaged within a service. Okay, maybe something which you're buying, which you're not explicitly paying for it as a separate line item. But when you're buying a solution, you have looked at it, you care about the fact that what threat intel it brings in, and as an overall thing, you are paying for it. In that context, how many of you would say that you do have it? In terms of show of hands. Does that change anything?
2. Okay. That's why we use Slido, because people don't want to put their legs and arms up. So we're going to go to the next thing, but this is actually very important. How many of you are aware of Maersk? M-A-E-R-S-K, Maersk. I've got a slide here. Take a look at this. And let that sink in for a few seconds, folks. This is serious stuff, okay? How many of us ever driven in a car? I know it's a dumb question, but please play along. Everyone's been in a car. I know you have to pray to God every time you leave. But the reason I ask is, what is the likelihood of one tire breaking? Or not breaking, going flat? Quite high, correct? Now, next question. What is the likelihood of 2 tires? Make this interactive, people. What's the likelihood of 2 tires? Less. 3? Very unlikely. 4? Sabotage. That's a good answer. Hold on. Why would you think about sabotage? Just kidding. I bring this up for a reason. Everyone keeps hearing the black swan event, but I like to say tires. Makes it more personal, right? Because you can easily paint a black swan black or a white swan black. But actually, 3 tires, 4 tires, what you're seeing here, at least a 3-tire event. Correct? Maybe 4 tires. And if you don't have automation, I'm a massive fan of automation. If you humanly, this was impossible. I know the naming convention of these things are not good. But this is referring to the NotPetya malware. Everyone happy with that? NotPetya? Ukraine and Russia? This is one of those comments by the big boys who do a lot of threat intel research, yeah? Literally by the second you saw it, the data center was gone. And one more interesting slide from Maersk. So in UK Wisdom of Crowds, we had someone who was in Maersk. Some very interesting insights. What happens if this happens in your business? Literally. This is what was happening at one of those companies. Yeah, your whole business is gone. And that's why incident response, incident management is actually very important. At least 3 tires, like I said. Maybe this is a 4-tire event. I don't know. But definitely 3 tires. Yeah? So stop saying black swan, my personal recommendation, because you can paint a swan black and people can't relate to it. Get a bit more personal. If you're sitting in a car, 3 tires go at the same time, how are you going to respond? Apart from making sure you have insurance, right? Or life insurance for that matter. But the point is, this is what happened. Individually, my personal recommendation to clients and people we do training with on CIPR is you better be able to respond to something like this. And humanly, this is impossible to respond to. Yeah? And how many of you are aware of shadow brokers? Shadow brokers? No? Please write it down. Shadow brokers is what the world would call a criminal gang. They don't believe they're criminal. They're a cyber criminal gang. They stole what? What did they steal? National NSA, not the Nigerian Security Agency. The US National Security Agency bucket load of exploits. And guess what? Only 2% of them have been used, if at all. 98% of thousands of advanced exploits remain untouched. Okay? So apart from you guys going to be really busy, the reality is this kind of thing is going to be more common. How many of you have heard of Hydro? Please write it down. Hydro. Similar attack to Maersk. Extremely fast takedown of the business. Incident response is not only human, it's got to be what you've been talking about. I know the marketing people like the word SOAR.
Yeah.
But you've got to consider automation. We can be here for a very long time, so we've got to move on. But keep this in mind. HYDRO, that's the new company, the aluminium firm. Okay,
yeah.
So
one point,
yes, go on.
Amar, was that I think while preparing for the black swan moment, I mean, that's, as we said, the rarest of rare, right? And we said that mentally, who's prepared for all 4 wheels going flat when you're running at, let's say, 80 kilometers? You're not. But the fact is, and while we didn't ask that question, the build-up of being prepared for a cybersecurity crisis, right? Whether it be something, as something, a complete wipeout like what we saw as far as Maersk is concerned, or something else. I think that is the key point of a crisis as in a real crisis is something that I think is definitely on for all enterprises. And if that kind of a crisis were to happen, then what would you do? Because I've had conversations, and and it's obviously a balance of economics versus this thing where sometimes the mind swings towards the fact that the cybersecurity providers are just focusing on the FUD aspect. You keep pushing the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and so what, so what. So
Sorry, question. How many people think vendors promote FUD? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Seriously, no one?
Because maybe I said it.
But the reality is what I had on the screen is not fear, it's just fact. Yeah? So there is no fear and there is no propaganda in there. It's just 100%. If you haven't read the article to read is the Wired magazine article. WIRED, the Wired magazine article on Maersk.